They laughed while she begged. "You don't belong here," Harley snapped. Sliding into the booth, Maria had waited 20 minutes for her kids standing there, watching their mother shrink in front of a room full of cameras. What the rich couple didn't realize was that the man in the corner had just decided their fate. If this story pulled you in, go ahead and subscribe so you never miss what's ahead. I've got another unforgettable story coming tomorrow. And while you're here, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing people tuned in from all over the world. Okay, let's get back into it. Excuse me. We were about to sit there. The woman turned slowly, her designer sunglasses still perched on her nose despite the cafe's warm interior. Her lip curled as she looked Maria up and down. "Were you?" Harley Waters stepped directly into Maria's path, blocking the empty booth completely. Behind her, the green leather seat gleamed under pendant lights, warm, inviting, and suddenly unreachable. "Look at you." Harley's voice carried across the cafe like a blade. "Underfed children and thrift store jackets. People like you don't eat in places like this. You stand outside and look through the windows." Her husband appeared beside her tall gray suit, slicked back hair. Elliot Waters slid into the booth with casual cruelty, spreading his arms across the backrest like he owned it. "What part of 'we're sitting here' confused you?" he smirked. "The grammar or the concept?" Maria's mouth opened. No words came. Charlie's small hand tightened around hers. Kevin pressed closer against her worn green jacket. "Ma'am, Maria tried again. "We were just what?" Harley's laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. She turned to the crowded cafe, voice rising. "Everyone, look at this." They actually thought, she gestured at Maria and her children with theatrical disgust, that they belonged at a nice table. The cafe went silent. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Forks paused over plates. A teenager near the window pulled out her phone, camera already recording. Harley leaned closer, sunglasses reflecting Maria's pale face. "There's a soup kitchen 2 blocks down. That's where people dressed like you go." "Please," Maria whispered. "We saved." "Saved what? Food stamps?" Elliot laughed from the booth, his expensive watch catching the light. "This is a cafe for paying customers. Real customers." Harley picked up the small reserved card from the table, delicate paper with elegant script. She let it flutter to the floor like garbage. "Security!" She didn't even look around. "We have someone here who needs escorting out." A man in a server's apron appeared, uncertain. "Ma'am, You see this?" Harley cut him off, pointing at Maria. "Standards are completely gone. They'll let anyone walk in off the street now. Probably saw the valet parking outside and thought they could scam some rich people." More phones emerged, cameras pointed. A woman at the next table whispered behind her hand, eyes wide with second-hand embarrassment. Charlie looked down at the polished concrete floor, his small shoulders curving inward. Kevin's grip on his mother's jacket turned his knuckles white. His eyes began to water. Maria felt it, the old, familiar weight pressing down on her chest. The one that came from being invisible until you were needed gone. The one she'd carried since Richard died. The one she thought she'd finally left at home tonight. "I'm sorry," she heard herself say, hating the words even as they left her mouth. You'll just leave," Harley finished. "Before you embarrass yourself further." The cafe felt smaller suddenly, walls closing in, every eye on them. No one moved to help. No one spoke up. Maria took a step back, pulling Charlie and Kevin with her, but 3 tables behind the Waters, in a corner booth beneath industrial lighting and exposed brick, a figure shifted. Thiago Leal had been sitting perfectly still for the last 5 minutes, a small espresso cup before him. Dark hair, olive skin, black suit, no tie. His white dress shirt was open at the collar, revealing the edge of a tattoo. He'd been watching since Maria and her children walked through the cafe door. He'd seen the customer stand up to leave. He'd seen Maria move toward the empty seat. He'd seen Harley Waters block her path. Now he set down his cup with deliberate calm. The porcelain made no sound against the wooden table. His eyes dark, unreadable, hadn't blinked in 30 seconds. At the table beside him, a man in a black jacket straightened slightly. He'd been reading a newspaper. Now his hands rested flat on the table, ready. 2 booths over, another man stopped scrolling on his phone. His posture changed, alert. Near the counter, a 3rd man turned from the menu board. His eyes found Thiago's across the room. What the Waters didn't know, in less than 3 minutes, their world would shatter. What the cafe didn't know, the man in the corner booth wasn't just any customer. Maria took another step backward, tears burning behind her eyes. "Come on," she whispered to Charlie and Kevin. "Let's go." Harley crossed her arms, satisfied. "That's what I thought." Elliot leaned back further in the stolen seat, grinning. The teenager's phone camera kept recording. Then Tiago stood. The movement was unhurried, smooth. A man rising from a table after finishing his coffee, but something about it made the air change. He buttoned his suit jacket with one hand, a single gesture that somehow commanded attention. Then he walked. Not rushed, not angry. Just walked toward the booth where Harley and Elliot Waters sat congratulating themselves. His shoes made soft sounds against the concrete floor. 5 steps. 6. The men at the other tables stood too quiet, synchronized, unremarked. Maria froze mid-turn, sensing the shift. Charlie looked up, confused. Tiago stopped beside the booth. He didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. "Stand up." Harley's head snapped toward him. "Excuse me?" "You're in her seat." His voice was calm, flat, terrifying in its absence of emotion. Elliot laughed. "Who the hell are you?" Tiago's eyes moved to him. Just looked. Didn't blink. The laugh died. "That seat," Tiago said quietly, "belongs to her." He tilted his head slightly toward Maria. Harley removed her sunglasses for the first time, eyes narrowing. "Do you have any idea who we are?" Tiago's expression didn't change. "No." He leaned down slightly. "Just enough." "Do you know who I am?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Harley opened her mouth, closed it. Something in his eyes, something cold and certain, made the words stick in her throat. "I didn't think so," Tiago said softly. Then he straightened, lifted one hand. A small gesture, barely a movement. But the 3 men at the other tables moved immediately. They walked toward the booth. Not running, not threatening, just walking. The cafe watched in silence. Harley's face went pale. "What are you?" 2 of the men reached the booth, 1 on each side. "Let's go," one said quietly to Elliot. "Don't touch me," Elliot started to say. The man's hand rested on his shoulder, not hard, just there. Elliot stood. He didn't have a choice. Harley scrambled up after him, fury and confusion warring on her face. "This is assault. I'm calling." "You're leaving," Tiago said, same quiet voice. "Now." The men guided the Waters away from the booth. Not violently, not roughly, just moved them. Elliot's expensive shoes scraped against the floor. Harley's designer handbag swung wildly. The entire cafe stared. Phones kept recording, but now they were recording something different. Tiago turned to Maria. His expression softened just barely. "Please," he said, gestured to the empty booth. "Sit." Maria stood frozen, holding her children's hands. "It's yours," Tiago said. She looked at the green leather seats, at Charlie and Kevin, at the man in the black suit who'd just dismantled her humiliation in less than a minute. "Go ahead," he said gently. Maria walked forward on shaking legs. Charlie and Kevin followed, eyes wide. They slid into the booth. The leather was soft, warm from the overhead lights. The cafe resumed breathing. Conversations started again, hushed, urgent. Harley and Elliot were escorted to the door. They left without another word. Tiago returned to his corner booth, sat down, picked up his espresso cup like nothing had happened. But his eyes stayed on Maria and her children, making sure they were safe, making sure they stayed. Maria's hands trembled as she picked up the menu. What she didn't know, her life had just changed forever. What the Waters didn't know, they'd just made an enemy who didn't forget. 4 hours earlier, Maria Martin had stood in her small apartment kitchen, counting bills on the counter for the 3rd time. $27.43. 3 months of saving. She smoothed the wrinkled bills with her palm, arranging them by denomination. 1s, 5s, a single 10 that felt like a fortune when she'd found it in her coat pocket last week. "Mom?" Charlie appeared in the doorway, backpack still on his shoulders. His jacket, beige, too thin for February, hung open. She kept meaning to replace the zipper, kept not having the money. "Are we really going?" His voice carried hope she couldn't bear to break. Maria smiled, the kind that took effort. "Yes, baby. Tonight we eat somewhere special." Kevin pushed past his older brother, eyes bright. "The cafe? The one with the lights?" "That one." Charlie had pressed his face against that window every day after school for 6 months, watching people laugh over lattes and sandwiches under warm pendant lights, watching a world that seemed so far from their own it might as well have been on television. "Just once," he'd whispered to her in November, breath fogging the glass. "Can we go just once?" Maria had promised. And Maria kept her promises. Even when keeping them meant eating cereal for dinner 3 nights a week. Even when it meant walking an extra mile to save bus fare. Even when her hands ached from scrubbing office floors until 2 in the morning. She looked at the money again. $27 would buy 3 sandwiches. Maybe drinks. Maybe, if she was careful, dessert. It wasn't much, but it was everything. 3 years ago, Richard had kissed her goodbye before his construction shift. "Love you," he'd said from the doorway. Work boots already laced, hard hat under his arm. "Love you too." Those were the last words they'd exchanged. The call came at 2:47 p.m. Hospital. Accident. Scaffolding collapse. Richard died before she reached him. The company sent flowers, offered condolences. Then their lawyer called. "Unfortunately, the investigation shows worker error. We can't accept liability." Maria had sat in their attorney's office, a free consultation. All she could afford listening to words like negligence and burden of proof and uphill battle. "They have resources you don't," the attorney had said gently. "I'm sorry." The funeral cost everything they'd saved. The burial plot, the headstone with his name carved in granite, because she couldn't bear the thought of a temporary marker. 3 weeks later, the landlord raised the rent. Maria found work cleaning offices, night shift, cash under the table, then the laundromat during the day sorting clothes that smelled like other people's lives. She learned to smile through exhaustion, to hide the tremor in her hands, to answer, "How are you?" with "fine." Thank you, even when fine felt like a foreign language. Charlie and Kevin grew up too fast. They stopped asking for new clothes, stopped mentioning birthday parties they weren't invited to, stopped talking about the kids at school who had phones and tablets and parents who picked them up in cars that didn't backfire. Kevin started packing his own lunch in 2nd grade. Charlie learned to cook eggs at 8. They never complained. That somehow made it worse. Tonight, Maria had looked at herself in the bathroom mirror before leaving. Her green jacket, the only one without holes in the pockets. Jeans from a thrift store, carefully mended at the knee. Hair pulled back because she didn't have time to wash it this morning. She looked tired. She looked poor. She looked exactly like what she was. For a moment, standing there under the flickering bathroom light, Maria had considered canceling, making an excuse, saving the money for something practical like winter coats or Charlie's field trip fee. Then Kevin had knocked on the door. "Mom, you ready?" She'd opened it to find both boys standing there, hair combed, faces washed, wearing their best clothes, which weren't much, but they'd tried. Charlie held out a small flower he'd picked from the apartment complex courtyard, half wilted, but offered with such earnest love that Maria's throat had tightened. "You look pretty," he'd said. She'd taken the flower, tucked it into her jacket pocket. "Thank you, baby." They'd walked to the cafe, 11 blocks. Kevin's hand in hers, Charlie walking slightly ahead, pretending to be too old for hand-holding but staying close anyway. The cafe glowed like a beacon, warm light spilling through windows, the smell of coffee and fresh bread drifting into the cold evening air. Charlie had stopped 3 feet from the door. "What if it's too expensive?" he'd whispered. Maria had checked the menu in the window earlier that week, memorized the prices, done the math 17 different ways. "We can afford it," she'd said. "Tonight we can afford it." Kevin had pushed the door open first, a small bell chiming above their heads. Inside, every table was full. Maria's heart had sunk. They'd stood just inside the entrance, the 3 of them crowded together, while customers glanced over and looked away. A hostess approached, professional smile already fading as she took in their appearance. "Do you have a reservation?" "No, but..." "I'm sorry, we're fully booked tonight." Maria had looked at Charlie, at Kevin, at their faces falling in real time. "Please," she'd said. "We can wait." The hostess had hesitated. "It might be an hour." "We'll wait." So they'd stood near the door, watching people eat, smelling food they couldn't reach. Charlie had leaned against her side. Kevin had drawn patterns on the window with his finger. 20 minutes passed. Then a customer stood up. Business casual. Phone pressed to his ear. He'd dropped money on the table and walked toward the exit without looking back. The booth sat empty. Green leather. 2 seats. Perfect. Maria had moved immediately, gently pulling Charlie and Kevin forward. They were 3 steps away when Harley Waters stepped into their path, and everything Maria had carefully built, the promise, the savings, the one good night she'd planned for her children, had crumbled in seconds. Now, sitting in that same booth with her children beside her, Maria couldn't stop shaking. The menu blurred in front of her eyes. Charlie sat rigid, staring straight ahead. Kevin's hand gripped hers under the table, small fingers squeezing tight. "Mom?" Kevin whispered. What just happened? Maria didn't know. The man in the black suit sat in the corner booth, exactly where he'd been before, drinking espresso like he hadn't just dismantled two people's arrogance with 4 quiet words. A waitress appeared beside their table, young, nervous. "Hi. What can I get you?" Maria's voice came out hoarse. 3 grilled cheese sandwiches, and water is fine. Actually, the waitress glanced toward the corner booth, then back. "Your meal tonight is covered. Order whatever you'd like." Maria blinked. "What?" The waitress nodded toward Thiago. He wasn't looking at them, but somehow, Maria knew. "I can't." Maria started. "Please," the waitress said gently. "He insists." Charlie looked up at his mother, eyes wide with question. Maria felt tears burning again. Different ones this time. She looked at the menu. Really looked. "Can we have burgers?" Kevin whispered. "With fries?" Maria's voice broke. "Yes, baby. We can have burgers." The waitress smiled. "I'll put that in." As she walked away, Maria finally let herself look toward the corner booth. Thiago met her eyes across the cafe. He nodded once. Simple, respectful, then returned to his espresso. Maria didn't know his name, didn't know why he'd helped, but she knew this. Someone had seen her, really seen her. Not as something to pity or mock or ignore, as someone worth defending. Charlie leaned against her shoulder. Kevin's grip on her hand finally loosened. For the first time in 3 years, Maria Martin felt something she'd forgotten existed. Dignity. The burgers arrived 12 minutes later. Kevin's eyes went wide. "It's huge." Charlie stared at his plate like it might disappear if he blinked. Maria watched her children really eat for the first time in months. Not picking at leftovers, not stretching one meal into 2, just eating like children should. Kevin got ketchup on his chin. Charlie laughed. The sound filled something hollow in Maria's chest. She took a small bite of her own burger, but mostly she watched them. Memorizing this moment, the warmth, the light, the way Kevin's legs swung under the booth because he was too short for his feet to touch the floor. Across the cafe, Thiago finished his espresso. He stood slowly, buttoning his suit jacket. The movement was economical, practiced. He placed cash on the table more than necessary and turned toward the exit. As he passed their booth, he paused. Maria looked up. "Enjoy your meal," he said quietly. His voice was different than before. Still controlled, but softer. Human. "Thank you," Maria managed. "I don't know how to." "You don't need to." He glanced at Charlie and Kevin. They deserve a good meal. Before Maria could respond, he was walking toward the door. She watched him leave, the bell chiming softly as he stepped into the February night. 3 other men stood from different tables and followed. They moved like water fluid, purposeful, unspoken. Maria hadn't noticed them before. Now she couldn't unsee them. Outside, Thiago stopped on the sidewalk. The city noise wrapped around him. Traffic, distant sirens, the hum of life continuing as it always did. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through messages he'd been ignoring. Behind him, the 3 men emerged from the cafe. The first was tall, lean, with a scar above his left eyebrow. His name was Ramos. He'd been with Thiago for 6 years. The second was broader, built like a linebacker. He wore a black leather jacket despite the cold. His name was Javier. The third was younger, maybe 30, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. They called him Cisco. "Boss," Ramos said quietly. "The Waters?" Thiago didn't look up from his phone. "Find out who they are." "Already did." Cisco held up his own phone. "Harley Waters, married to Elliot Waters, real estate development, old money from her side, new money from his projects. Connected?" "They think so. Country club, charity galas, politicians and their contacts." Cisco scrolled. "But nothing real. Just social climbers with expensive clothes." Thiago pocketed his phone. "They humiliated that woman in front of her children. We saw," Javier said. "They did it because they thought they could." Thiago's voice was calm. Too calm. Because they thought no one would stop them. Ramos waited. He knew that tone. "Keep eyes on them," Thiago said. "I want to know where they live, where they eat, who they talk to." "You think they'll retaliate?" Cisco asked. Thiago smiled without humor. "I think people like that don't learn lessons the first time." He started walking toward the black SUV parked half a block down. His men followed. "And the woman?" Ramos asked. "The mother?" Thiago paused, hand on the car door. "If she needs anything, make sure she gets it. Quietly. She doesn't need to know it came from me." "Understood." Thiago slid into the back seat. Javier took the driver's position. Ramos rode passenger. Cisco would follow in his own car. As they pulled into traffic, Thiago looked back at the cafe one last time. Through the window, he could see Maria and her children still sitting in the booth. Kevin was laughing at something Charlie said. Maria was smiling, small, fragile, but real. Something about that smile made Thiago's jaw tighten. He'd seen too much cruelty in his life. Built his empire on understanding it, controlling it, using it when necessary. But cruelty toward the defenseless? That he would never tolerate. 20 blocks away, Harley Waters slammed her car door hard enough to make Elliot flinch. "Drive," she snapped. Elliot started the Mercedes, hands shaking slightly on the wheel. "Harley, maybe we should just what?" She whirled on him. "Let some thug humiliate us in public?" Everyone was recording Elliot. "Do you understand what that means? He wasn't exactly a thug." "I don't care what he was." Her voice rose to a shriek. "He put his hands on us. He threw us out like we were trash." Elliot pulled into traffic, jaw tight. "We probably shouldn't have." "Shouldn't have what? Taken an empty table?" "We're paying customers, Elliot. We belong in places like that. Not," she gestured wildly, "welfare recipients with their sad little children." Elliot said nothing. He'd learned years ago when silence was safer. Harley pulled out her phone, fingers flying across the screen. Texting, deleting, texting again. "Who are you messaging?" Elliot asked. "People who can help." Her eyes gleamed with something ugly. "That waiter, did you hear him?" When the big guy walked over, the waiter called him something. A name. I didn't catch it. Thiago something. Spanish maybe. Doesn't matter. Harley's smile was sharp. "Everyone has a weakness, Elliot. Everyone can be dealt with." Elliot's hands tightened on the wheel. "Harley, those men with him, were hired help. Probably friends doing him a favor." She waved dismissively. "People like that are all show. Push back and they crumble. I don't care what you think." Harley's voice went cold. "I'm not letting this go. Do you understand? I'm not the one who gets humiliated. I'm the one who wins." Elliot drove in silence, a knot forming in his stomach. He'd seen the look in that man's eyes, the way he'd moved, the way those other men had responded to a single gesture. That wasn't hired help, that was something else entirely. But Harley wasn't listening. She never did. Back at the cafe, Maria wiped Kevin's face with a napkin. "Can we come back?" he asked. "Sometime?" Maria's throat tightened. "Maybe, baby." "I liked it here," Charlie said quietly. "Before. You know." "I know." The waitress returned with a small bag. "Dessert. On the house." Maria started to protest, but the young woman just smiled and walked away. Inside the bag were 3 chocolate chip cookies, still warm. Kevin gasped. Charlie actually grinned. Maria felt tears threatening again. One night, one meal, one stranger's unexpected kindness. It shouldn't mean this much, but it did. They finished their cookies slowly, savoring every bite. When they finally stood to leave, Maria left the money she'd saved on the table anyway, not as payment that was covered, but as a thank you to the waitress who'd been kind. Outside, the February air bit through her thin jacket. Charlie and Kevin walked close on either side, full and happy and warm. "Mom?" Kevin said. "Who was that man? The one who helped us?" Maria looked back at the cafe. The lights still glowed. People still ate and laughed and lived their lives. "I don't know, baby. He was nice," Kevin decided. "Yes," Maria said softly. "He was." What she didn't say, she'd probably never see him again. What she didn't know, Thiago Leal was already making sure she'd be protected. What neither of them knew, the Waters were making calls. And in 3 days, everything would explode. They walked home through streets that felt a little less cold. Maria held her children's hands and let herself believe, just for tonight, that the world might not be entirely cruel. Behind them, a black SUV idled at the corner. Cisco watched until they disappeared into their apartment building. Then he made a call. "They're home safe, boss." "Good," Thiago's voice came through. "Keep someone on the building tonight, just in case." Already arranged. The line went dead. Cisco lit a cigarette and settled in to wait. In this city, when Thiago Leal decided someone mattered, they stayed protected, whether they knew it or not. That night, Harley Waters sat in her penthouse living room, phone pressed to her ear, fingers drumming against Italian leather. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city skyline. Lights sparkled like scattered diamonds. Down there, somewhere in those streets, was the man who'd humiliated her. She intended to find him. "Senator Crawford's office," a voice answered, professional, cold. "This is Harley Waters. I need to speak with him directly." A pause. "The senator is unavailable. May I take a message?" "Tell him it's about his campaign contribution, the one I'm reconsidering." Another pause, longer this time. "Please hold." Harley smiled. Money always opened doors. Elliot sat across from her, bourbon in hand, watching with the resignation of a man who'd learned not to argue. The side of his face where he'd been grabbed still felt tender. "Mrs. Waters?" A different voice, older, cautious. "This is unexpected. Senator, I need information on someone. A man named Thiago, Spanish surname I think, operates in the city, has muscle with him." Silence stretched across the line. "Senator? Mrs. Waters?" His voice had changed. Careful now, almost fearful. "I can't help you with that." "Excuse me? If you're talking about who I think you're talking about, you need to drop this." Immediately, Harley's grip tightened on the phone. "I'm calling in a favor." "No favor is worth this." The senator's voice dropped. "Listen to me carefully. If you've had a run-in with Thiago Leal, you apologize and you disappear. You don't investigate. You don't retaliate. You don't even speak his name in public. Who the hell is he? Someone you don't cross. Someone I don't cross." Papers rustled in the background. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Waters. I have another call." The line went dead. Harley stared at her phone, fury building like pressure in a sealed container. Elliot took a long drink. "Maybe we should listen." "Shut up." She scrolled through her contacts. Found another number. A private investigator she'd used before when a business partner needed. Discouraging. The phone rang twice. "This is Raymond. I need information on someone. Thiago Leal." The silence was immediate and absolute. "Raymond? I don't take jobs involving him." The words came fast. "I don't care what you're paying. Find someone else." "Wait." Click. Harley threw her phone onto the couch. Unbelievable. "Harley, maybe this is a sign." "A sign of what, Elliot? That we should just accept being humiliated? That we should let some criminal... We don't know that he had men waiting. Did you see how they moved? That's organized crime, Elliot. And organized crime has enemies." She picked up her phone again, scrolling deeper into her contacts, past the respectable names, past the politicians and lawyers and society people, down to the numbers saved without names. The ones from her father's old contacts, from before the family money went legitimate, from when the Waters' fortune was built on handshakes and threats and money laundering. Her father had warned her before he died. Never call these people unless you're desperate. Harley was beyond desperate. She was humiliated. And humiliation, to someone like Harley Waters, was worse than any physical wound. The next morning, a man named Griffin sat in a diner on the industrial side of town. He was 43, scar tissue across his knuckles, eyes that had seen too much and cared about too little. He'd done wet work for anyone who could pay. No loyalty, no conscience, just efficiency. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered anyway. "Yeah, I was given this number by a mutual contact. I need someone dealt with." Griffin stirred his coffee. "I don't work off references anymore. How'd you get this number?" "My father was Henry Waters." Griffin paused. He remembered that name. Old school. Brutal when necessary. Dead for 5 years now. "You're the daughter?" "Yes, and I'm willing to pay triple your usual rate." "For?" "A man named Thiago Leal." The spoon in Griffin's hand stopped moving. "Say that again. Thiago Leal. I want him." "No." Griffin set the spoon down carefully. "Absolutely not. I haven't even told you what I want done. Doesn't matter." Griffin's voice went flat. "You're asking about Thiago Leal. The answer is no." Harley's voice rose. "I'm offering $500,000. You could offer $10 million and I'd still say no." Griffin leaned back in the booth. "Lady, I don't know what your daddy told you about this business, but there are rules. And rule 1 is, you don't touch certain people." "Why? Who is he?" "Someone your father would have told you to avoid if he had any sense." Griffin rubbed his face. "Thiago Leal runs this city's underworld. Not the small-time stuff. The real infrastructure. Docks, import routes, protection networks. He's got judges, cops, politicians, all in his pocket. Then he has enemies. His enemies are dead. Griffin's voice went cold. Every single one. You know why? Because Tiago doesn't play games. He doesn't warn. He doesn't negotiate. You cross him, you disappear, completely. Harley's silence stretched. Find someone else, Griffin said. Better yet, whatever he did to you, forget it happened. He humiliated me. Then you got off light. Griffin stood, dropping money on the table. Goodbye, Mrs. Waters. Don't call this number again. He hung up and immediately pulled the battery from his phone. If she was stupid enough to go after Tiago Leal, he wanted no connection to it when the bodies started dropping. That afternoon, Harley sat in her bedroom, staring at her phone. Every contact had refused. Every single one. Senator Crawford, Raymond, the investigator, Griffin, the hitter. Even her father's old attorney had called back to warn her off. Let it go, he'd said. Whatever happened, it's not worth your life. Her life. They all talked like she was in danger, like she was the problem. Harley looked at herself in the vanity mirror. Designer clothes, professional makeup, perfectly styled hair. She looked like someone who mattered, someone who won, but everyone kept treating her like she'd made a mistake, like she was the one who needed to back down. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Heard you're looking for help with a problem. I can help, but it'll cost you. Harley's pulse quickened. She typed back. Who is this? Someone who doesn't care about reputations. You want Tiago Leal touched? I'll do it. 1 million. Half up front. Harley's hands trembled. Every instinct screamed warning. Every professional contact had refused. But this person, whoever they were, was offering. She thought about the cafe, the humiliation, the cameras recording, the way that man had looked at her like she was nothing, like she didn't matter. Her fingers moved across the screen. How do I know you're legitimate? You don't, but you're out of options. Send the money or don't. Your choice. Harley sat there for 5 full minutes. Elliot was in his office, probably drinking. The penthouse was silent, except for the distant hum of traffic. She made her choice. I'll wire the first payment tomorrow. When can you move? 3 days. Send address and photo. Harley found the image. Someone had posted it online from the cafe. Blurry, but clear enough. Tiago in his black suit. That calm, terrible face. She attached it and typed the cafe's address. Then she transferred $500,000 to an offshore account. The text came back immediately. Received. He's dead by Friday. Harley set down her phone. Her hands were shaking, but she smiled. She'd won. She always won. What she didn't know, the person on the other end of those texts wasn't a professional. They were an informant, one of Tiago's. And in a safe house across town, Ramos was already showing Tiago the entire text chain. Tiago read it twice. Then he looked at Ramos. Find out everything about the Waters, every account, every property, every secret they've ever kept. Already started, boss. Good. Tiago's voice was calm, almost gentle. They just made this personal. He looked at the photo Harley had sent, his own face staring back from a stranger's phone. In 3 days, he said quietly, the Waters are going to learn what real power looks like. Ramos nodded and left. Tiago sat alone in the silence. He'd given them a chance to walk away. They'd chosen war instead. So be it. Friday morning, 2 men sat in a stolen Honda Civic 3 blocks from Tiago's office building. The driver was named Kyle, 28, ex-military, dishonorably discharged. He'd done security work until his drinking made him unreliable. Now he took jobs most people wouldn't touch. The passenger was older, graying at the temples. He went by Mitch, though that wasn't his real name. He'd been in the game long enough to know this felt wrong. This the place? Kyle asked, checking the address on his phone. That's what she said. Mitch stared at the building. Modern glass and steel. High-end. The kind of place that had cameras everywhere. Kyle lit a cigarette. You ever work a job like this? Like what? High-profile target. Organized crime. Mitch didn't answer immediately. Once. In Detroit. 5 years ago. How'd it go? I'm still alive. My partner isn't. Kyle blew smoke out the window. Reassuring. You want reassuring work security at a mall. Mitch adjusted the gun tucked into his waistband. This job pays because it's dangerous. She's offering $1 million total. That buys a lot of reassurance after. If we live that long. We will. It's a simple hit. In and out. He leaves the building at 6:30 every evening. Walks to the parking garage. Dark. Isolated. We hit him there. Kyle nodded, but his hands were tight on the steering wheel. They'd been watching for 2 days. Tiago kept a routine, arrived at 8 a.m., left at 6:30 p.m., always walked the same route, always alone for exactly 90 seconds between the building door and his car. 90 seconds was enough, at least. That's what they'd told themselves. What they didn't know, they'd been watched since the moment they arrived. 2 blocks away, Cisco sat in a coffee shop with a clear view of the Honda. He'd spotted them the first day. 2 men in a cheap car, parked too long, eyes always on the building. Amateur surveillance. Sloppy. He'd reported it immediately. Tiago's response had been simple. Let them come. Now Cisco spoke quietly into his phone. They're still in position, boss. Good. Tiago's voice was calm. When I leave tonight, give them their chance. You sure about this? Completely. I want to see who they work for. We already know. I want them to confirm it. Tiago paused. How many men do we have in position? 8. Javier's in the garage. Ramos is on the 2nd floor of the parking structure. 4 more in the building lobby. 2 on the street. More than enough. Boss, if something goes wrong, nothing will go wrong. Tiago's tone left no room for argument. These men are desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. Let them make theirs. The line went dead. Cisco sipped his coffee and watched the Honda. Kyle was smoking his 4th cigarette. Mitch kept checking his phone. Amateurs. This would be over in minutes. At 6:15 p.m., Tiago stood in his office. The space was minimalist. A desk, 2 chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. No personal photos, no artwork. Nothing that revealed who he was beyond the work. He buttoned his suit jacket and checked his watch. Right on schedule. Javier's voice came through the earpiece. We're ready, boss. Good. Stay sharp. Tiago walked to the elevator, pressed the button for the ground floor. His reflection stared back from the polished steel doors. Dark suit, calm expression. A man who looked like he belonged in boardrooms, not war zones, but Tiago had learned long ago. The most dangerous battles were fought in silence. The elevator descended smoothly. The doors opened to the lobby marble floors, modern lighting, a security desk where 2 guards sat pretending to read monitors. Both were Tiago's men. Evening, Mr. Leal, one said. Tiago nodded and walked toward the exit. Outside, the February cold bit immediately. The sun had set an hour ago. Streetlights cast long shadows across the sidewalk. Tiago turned left toward the parking garage. His footsteps echoed off concrete. Behind him, the stolen Honda's engine started. Kyle's hands were shaking. He's moving, Mitch said. Go. Slow. Kyle pulled into traffic, staying 3 cars back. Tiago walked with unhurried purpose. Not checking his phone, not looking around, just walking. Too easy, Kyle muttered. Easy is good. Easy means we get paid. Mitch pulled out his gun, checked the magazine. 17 rounds, more than necessary. They followed Tiago to the parking garage entrance, watched him disappear into the shadowed structure. Park here, Mitch said. We go on foot. Kyle pulled to the curb, killed the engine. Both men stepped out. The night air felt colder suddenly, heavier. Mitch led the way into the garage. Concrete walls, dim fluorescent lighting, the smell of oil and exhaust. Their footsteps seemed too loud. Where is he? Kyle whispered. Then they saw him. Tiago stood beside a black Mercedes, keys in hand, completely unaware. His back was to them. Perfect. Mitch raised his gun. Now. They moved forward. Fast. Professional. 10 feet away. 5. Mitch's finger tightened on the trigger. Then a voice spoke from behind them. Drop the weapons. Both men froze. Kyle turned his head slowly. Javier stood there, gun leveled. Behind him, 2 more men emerged from between parked cars. Mitch's eyes went wide. Shit. I said drop them. Javier's voice was ice. Kyle's gun clattered to the concrete. Mitch held his a second longer, calculating. Don't, Javier warned. Mitch dropped it. From the Mercedes, Tiago turned around. He'd known they were there the entire time. He walked toward them slowly, hands in his pockets, casual, like he was approaching old friends. Gentlemen, Tiago said, you've made a mistake. Kyle's face had gone pale. Mitch stared at the ground. Who sent you? Tiago asked. Silence. Javier stepped forward, pressing his gun against Kyle's temple. Answer the question. We don't. Kyle stammered. You don't know? Tiago smiled. You were hired to kill someone, and you don't know who hired you? We got the job through a broker. What broker? I don't have a name, just a number and payment instructions. Thiago looked at Mitch. What about you? Mitch said nothing. His jaw was set. Professional pride keeping him quiet, Thiago nodded to Javier. What happened next took 3 seconds. Javier struck Mitch across the face with the gun. Mitch dropped to his knees. Javier kicked him in the ribs, hard. Mitch gasped, curling inward. The name? Thiago said calmly. Waters, Mitch choked out. Harley Waters. She hired us through an intermediary. Kyle's eyes went wide. Mitch, shut up. Mitch spat blood. It's over. Thiago crouched down to Mitch's level. How much did she pay? Half up front, 500,000. And the other half? When you were dead? Thiago nodded slowly. You were never going to get that second payment. Mitch looked up, confusion in his eyes. The intermediary who contacted you? Thiago said. He works for me. The account you sent the money to? Mine. Every text you received, every instruction, all mine. The color drained from Mitch's face. You just paid me $500,000 to expose Harley Waters' intent to commit murder. Thiago stood. Thank you for your business. Kyle made a sound like a wounded animal. You set us up, Mitch whispered. You set yourselves up. Thiago straightened his jacket. You accepted a contract on my life. Did you really think I wouldn't know? Ramos appeared from the stairwell with a phone in his hand. Got everything recorded, boss. Full confession. Excellent. Thiago looked at the two men. You have a choice now. You can work for me cleaning up this mess and testifying when needed, or you can refuse. And if we refuse? Kyle asked. Thiago didn't answer. He didn't need to. The silence said everything. Mitch closed his eyes. We'll work for you. Smart. Thiago turned to Javier. Take them to the safe house. Get their full statements. I want every detail about their contact with Waters. Every text, every call, every payment. Yes, boss. As Javier hauled both men to their feet, Thiago walked back to his Mercedes. Cisco emerged from the shadows. What about the Waters? Thiago opened his car door. Tomorrow night, we visit them at home. You want us to? No. Thiago slid into the driver's seat. I want them to understand exactly what they've done, and exactly what will happen if they don't leave this city within 3 days. He started the engine. Fear, Thiago said quietly, is more permanent than violence. Cisco nodded. The Mercedes pulled out of the garage, disappearing into Friday night traffic. Behind him, Kyle and Mitch were being loaded into an unmarked van. The trap had worked perfectly, and Harley Waters had just handed Thiago everything he needed to destroy her. Saturday night, the Waters mansion sat on 3 acres in the city's most exclusive neighborhood. Iron gates, manicured hedges, security cameras at every corner. The kind of house that announced wealth before you even saw the door. Inside, Harley paced the marble foyer, phone pressed to her ear. He should be dead by now, she hissed. It's been 12 hours since. The line was disconnected. She'd been calling the intermediary all day. Every call went straight to a dead number. $500,000. Gone. No confirmation. No body. No news reports. Nothing. Elliot sat in the living room, staring at his third scotch. Maybe we should call the police. And tell them what? Harley snapped. That we hired someone to commit murder and they took our money? We could say, nothing. We say nothing. She threw her phone onto the couch. They scammed us. Professional con artists. Probably saw us coming from a mile away. Elliot wanted to believe that. Wanted to believe this was just about money, but something felt wrong. The way everyone had warned her. The way people had refused to help. The way that Senator's voice had changed when she'd said Thiago's name. Harley, he said quietly, I think we should leave town for a while. What? Just until this blows over. A vacation. Europe, maybe. Or the Caribbean. Harley stared at him like he'd suggested surrender. We are not running. I'm not saying run. I'm saying strategic distance. From what? A con artist who took our money? A thug who got lucky in a cafe? She crossed her arms. We did nothing wrong, Elliot. Nothing. Before he could respond, every light in the house went out. Complete darkness. Harley gasped. What? Breaker probably tripped, Elliot said, standing. His voice shook slightly. I'll check. The front door opened. Not kicked in, not broken. Just opened, like someone had a key. Elliot's heart hammered against his ribs. Who's there? Footsteps echoed across the marble. calm, measured. Multiple people. Then the lights came back on. Thiago stood in their foyer. Behind him, Javier and Ramos. Behind them, 2 more men. And on the floor, at Thiago's feet, were Kyle and Mitch. Bound, gagged, bruised. Harley screamed. Elliot stumbled backward, knocking over his drink. Glass shattered on marble. "Good evening," Thiago said quietly. His voice was the same as in the cafe, calm, controlled. But here, in the darkness of their home, it carried a different weight. Terror. How did you— Harley couldn't finish. "Get in?" Thiago smiled. "Your security system is expensive, but everything has vulnerabilities." He glanced at the bound men. These 2, for example. They thought they were professionals. Elliot's eyes went to Kyle and Mitch. Recognition dawned slowly, horribly. "You hired them," Thiago said. "Not a question, a statement." Harley's face went white. "I don't know what you're—" Thiago held up a phone, pressed play. Her own voice filled the foyer. "I want Thiago Leal touched. I'll do it. 1 million. Half up front." Harley's legs nearly gave out. "You recorded—" "Everything." Thiago pocketed the phone. "Every text, every payment, every instruction. You were so eager for revenge, you didn't stop to think about who you were dealing with." Elliot raised his hands. "Please, we didn't mean—" "You absolutely meant it." Thiago's voice sharpened. "You hired assassins. You transferred money. You gave them my photo and location." He stepped closer. "You tried to have me killed because I stopped you from humiliating a widow in front of her children." The words hung in the air like an indictment. Harley found her voice. "You assaulted us. You had no right." "I had every right." Thiago's eyes went cold. "You want to talk about rights? That woman you mocked? She lost her husband 3 years ago. Company refused to pay compensation. She works 2 jobs to feed her children, and you humiliated her for sport. She was taking our table. It wasn't your table." Thiago's voice went dangerously quiet. "It was an empty seat you stole because you believed your money made you better than her." Silence. Javier and Ramos stood motionless. The bound men on the floor didn't move. Thiago walked further into the house, past the foyer, into the living room, taking in the Italian furniture. The original artwork. The crystal chandelier. "Nice home," he said. "Probably worth what, 4 million? Elliot didn't answer. "I know it's worth 4.2 million, Thiago continued. "I also know you have a vacation property in Aspen, a condo in Miami, investment accounts with Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs." He turned to face them. "I know about the offshore account in the Caymans, the one you used to avoid taxes, the Shell Corporation in Delaware." Harley's breathing went shallow. "I know everything," Thiago said simply. "Your accountant works for me now. Your lawyer received a very generous offer to share your files. Your bank manager?" He smiled. "Let's just say he's cooperative." Elliot sank into a chair. "What do you want?" "I want you to understand something." Thiago's voice softened, which somehow made it worse. "You live in this city because I allow it. You do business here because I permit it. The safety you feel behind these gates, that exists because people like me maintain order. You're a criminal. I'm a businessman." Thiago cut him off. "And you just tried to kill me, which means you broke the most fundamental rule of business. Don't attack someone who controls more than you do." He walked to the window, looked out at their manicured lawn. "You have 3 days to leave this city," he said. "Sell your properties, transfer your accounts, disappear. You can't just—" "I can." Thiago turned back. "Because if you're still here in 72 hours, I will release every piece of evidence I have on your tax evasion to the IRS. I will leak your offshore accounts to the press. I will ensure every business connection you have learns you tried to hire assassins." Harley's voice was barely a whisper. "You'd destroy us." "No, you'd destroy yourselves." Thiago's expression didn't change. "I'm offering you an escape. Take it." Elliot stood on shaking legs. "And if we go to the police? With what evidence?" Thiago gestured to Kyle and Mitch. "These men? They work for me now. That recording? It shows you hiring them. The money trail? Leads back to you." He paused. "You have no leverage, no allies, no options." Ramos stepped forward with a folder, handed it to Thiago. Thiago placed it on the coffee table. "Everything you need is in there. Recommended realtors, attorneys who won't ask questions, instructions for liquidating your assets quietly." He headed toward the door. 3 days, not 1 hour more. At the threshold, he stopped. "One more thing." His voice went deadly quiet. "If you even think about retaliating against me, against that woman, against anyone in this city, what happens next won't be a warning." He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. Javier and Ramos grabbed Kyle and Mitch, dragging them out. The other men followed. Within 30 seconds, the house was empty again. The front door closed with a soft click. Harley stood frozen in the middle of her $1 million living room. Elliot stared at the folder on the table. Neither spoke for a long time. Finally, Harley's legs gave out. She collapsed onto the couch, hands shaking. "He was in our house," she whispered. "He just walked in." Elliot opened the folder with trembling fingers. Inside were property listings, contact information for moving companies, bank transfer forms, everything organized, efficient, like their exile had been planned down to the last detail. At the bottom was a handwritten note. "You were given a chance to be decent human beings. You chose cruelty. Now you live with the consequences, TL." Elliot's hands shook so badly the paper fluttered. "We have to leave," he said. "I'm not—" "Harley," his voice cracked. "He owns this city. You heard him. He has our accountant, our lawyer, our bank records, everything." Tears ran down Harley's face, not from sadness, from rage, from humiliation, from the crushing realization that for the first time in her life, she'd lost, completely. 3 days, Elliot said quietly. "We pack, we sell, we disappear." Harley said nothing, but she knew he was right. Outside, Thiago slid into his Mercedes. "They'll run," Ramos said from the passenger seat. "Yes," Thiago agreed. "They will. And if they don't?" Thiago started the engine. "Then they'll learn why no one crosses me twice." The car pulled away from the mansion, leaving the waters to their fear and their shattered pride. Justice, Thiago had learned, didn't always need violence. Sometimes it just needed truth, and the certain knowledge that some people couldn't be bought, threatened, or stopped. The waters had learned that lesson. They'd spend the rest of their lives remembering it. Sunday morning, Harley sat at her kitchen island, laptop open, staring at real estate listings. She hadn't slept. Her eyes were red-rimmed and hollow. The designer robe she wore felt like a costume now expensive fabric that couldn't hide what she'd become. Afraid. Elliot walked in, phone pressed to his ear. His face was gray. "Yes, I understand the market's slow right now, but—" He paused, listening. "No, we need to sell within the week. The price is negotiable." He hung up and met Harley's eyes. "That was the 4th realtor," he said quietly. "They all say the same thing. Selling this fast will cost us 20, maybe 30% below market value." Harley's fingers tightened on her coffee cup. "So we lose $1 million, at least." She wanted to scream, wanted to throw something. But the fight had drained out of her sometime around 3 a.m. when she'd finally accepted the truth. They were leaving, one way or another. "What about Denver?" Elliot asked, pulling up a listing on his phone. "Your cousin has connections there. We could start over." "I don't want to start over." Harley's voice cracked. "This is our city, our home." It was. Elliot set down his phone. "It's his now." The words landed like a physical blow. Harley closed her laptop, stood, walked to the window overlooking their pool, their gardens, their 3 acres of carefully maintained status, all of it meaningless now. "I'm going to make some calls," Elliot said. "See if anyone will buy the Aspen property." He left the kitchen. Harley stood alone, staring at her reflection in the window glass. 2 days ago, she'd been untouchable, wealthy, connected, the kind of woman who got tables at exclusive restaurants and invitations to society events. Now she was running. Her phone buzzed. A text from her friend Patricia. "Is it true you're selling the house? What happened?" Word was already spreading. Another text. This one from the country club manager. "Mrs. Waters, we need to discuss your membership dues. There seems to be an issue with your account." Harley's hands shook. She called her bank, waded through the automated menu, finally reached a person. "This is Harley Waters. I need to speak with Thomas Chen about my accounts." "I'm sorry, Mrs. Waters. Mr. Chen is no longer your account manager." "What? Since when?" "As of this morning. You've been reassigned to—" Harley hung up. Reassigned. That's what Thiago had done. Removed the people she knew. The ones who might have helped. She tried her lawyer next. Rothstein and Associates. "This is Harley Waters. I need to speak with David immediately." A pause. "Mr. Rothstein is unavailable. Tell him it's urgent, Mrs. Waters." The secretary's voice went cold. Mr. Rothstein has asked that you seek representation elsewhere. He can't just... He can, and he has. Goodbye. The line went dead. Harley stared at her phone. One by one, her connections were disappearing. Not because of coincidence, because Tiago had reached them first. Monday afternoon, a moving truck pulled into the Waters driveway. Harley watched from the window as two men began loading boxes, furniture she'd spent months selecting, artwork she'd bought at charity auctions, the physical markers of everything she'd built, all going into storage, or worse, being sold at liquidation prices because they were desperate. Elliot appeared beside her. The Miami condo sold. Below asking, but it sold. How much below? 18%. Harley closed her eyes. The Aspen property has an offer, Elliot continued. But they want to close in 90 days. We need the money now. So we take a bridge loan. No bank will give us one. Elliot's voice was flat. I tried. They all suddenly have lending restrictions that apply to us. Of course they did. Thiago's reach extended everywhere. A car pulled up outside. Sleek. Black. Expensive. Harley's stomach dropped. Is that... No. Elliot squinted. That's... Patricia. Her friend stepped out, designer sunglasses on, carrying a small gift bag. Harley almost laughed. Patricia was here to gloat, to see the fall firsthand. She opened the door before Patricia could knock. Harley. Patricia's smile was too bright, too sympathetic. I heard you were moving. Thought I'd bring something for the road. How kind. Harley's voice was ice. Patricia stepped inside, taking in the half-empty living room. The boxes, the chaos. So sudden, she said. What happened? Family emergency. Elliot's mother needs us closer. In Denver? How did she know they were going to Denver? Word travels, Patricia said, reading Harley's expression. You know how it is. Yes. Harley knew exactly how it was. Patricia set the gift bag on the counter. Everyone's talking, you know, about what happened at that cafe. Harley's jaw tightened. I don't know what you mean. Oh, come on. The video's everywhere. Patricia pulled out her phone. See? 40,000 views already. She turned the screen. There it was. Harley blocking Maria. Elliot smirking. Her voice loud and cruel. People like you don't eat in places like this. Then Tiago standing. The men removing them from the booth. The humiliation captured in high definition. Everyone's saying you picked a fight with the wrong person, Patricia said, eyes gleaming. That the man in the suit is connected. Dangerous. He's nobody, Harley forced out. Really? Because the rumor is he runs half this city. Patricia leaned closer. And that you tried to have him killed. Harley's face went white. That's ridiculous. Is it? Patricia's smile turned sharp. Because you're selling everything and running to Denver. That doesn't look like nothing. Elliot appeared in the doorway. Patricia, I think it's time for you to leave. Patricia straightened, adjusting her sunglasses. Of course, I just wanted to say goodbye. She paused at the door. Oh, and Harley? The club's revoking your membership. Board vote was unanimous. She left before Harley could respond. The door closed with a soft click. Harley stood frozen. The country club. Her social circle. Her reputation. All gone. We need to finish packing, Elliot said quietly. Harley walked upstairs without responding. In her bedroom, the master suite with the view she'd loved, she started pulling clothes from her closet. Designer dresses. Shoes that cost more than some people's rent. Handbags she'd waited months to acquire. All of it felt empty now. She'd spent years building this life. This image. This version of herself that mattered. And it had collapsed in 72 hours. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. 48 hours remaining. TL. Harley threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall and shattered. She sank onto the bed, surrounded by expensive clothes and broken dreams. For the first time since childhood, Harley Waters cried. Not delicate tears. Not the kind she could hide behind sunglasses. Real, ugly sobbing that shook her entire body. Because she finally understood. Money couldn't protect her. Connections couldn't save her. And the man she'd tried to destroy was more powerful than anything she'd ever known. Downstairs, Elliot sat in his office, staring at plane tickets to Denver, one way, leaving Thursday morning, 2 days from now. He'd already accepted a position at his uncle's firm. Less money, less prestige, but far from this city, far from Thiago Leal, far from the consequences of Harley's pride. His phone rang, a number he didn't recognize. He answered anyway. Hello? Mr. Waters. The voice was calm, familiar. This is Thiago Leal. Elliot's blood went cold. What do you want? To make sure you understand the terms. You leave Thursday. You don't return. You don't contact anyone from this city. You disappear completely. We're leaving. You have my word. Your word means nothing to me. Thiago's voice was flat. But your fear does. Remember that fear, Mr. Waters. Remember what it feels like to be powerless. We never meant. You meant exactly what you did. You saw someone vulnerable, and you attacked them. You thought your money made you invincible. A pause. Now you know better. The line went dead. Elliot set down his phone with shaking hands. Upstairs, Harley's crying had stopped. The house was silent except for the movers loading their lives into cardboard boxes. By Thursday, the Waters would be gone, and this city, their city, as they'd called it, would forget them completely. Just another couple who'd learned too late that some people couldn't be bought, and some lessons cost everything. Tuesday evening, Maria stood at her kitchen sink, washing dishes by hand. The apartment was quiet. Charlie was doing homework at the small table. Kevin sat beside him, coloring with crayons worn down to stubs. It had been 4 days since the cafe, 4 days since a stranger had defended them. Maria had replayed that moment 100 times. The way Thiago had stood, the calm authority in his voice, how quickly everything had changed. She still didn't understand it, but she was grateful. A knock at the door made her jump. "Mom?" Charlie looked up. "Stay here." Maria dried her hands and walked to the door, peering through the peephole. A man in a black suit stood in the hallway. Her heart stopped. She recognized him. One of the men from the cafe, the one who'd helped remove the Waters from the booth. Maria opened the door slightly, keeping the chain engaged. "Yes? Mrs. Martin?" His voice was respectful. "My name is Ramos. I work with Thiago Leal. May I speak with you?" Maria's grip tightened on the doorframe. "What's this about?" "He'd like to meet with you. Just to talk. Is something wrong?" "No, ma'am. Nothing wrong." Ramos pulled out a business card, slid it through the gap. "He's downstairs, in a car. He asked if you'd give him 5 minutes of your time." Maria took the card. Heavy stock. Simple text. "Thiago Leal. Leal Logistics. I have my children. They can come. Or I can wait here with them. Whatever makes you comfortable." Maria looked back at Charlie and Kevin. They were watching, curious but not afraid. She made a decision. "Charlie, Kevin, come here please." They appeared at her side immediately. "We're going downstairs for a few minutes," she said. "Stay close to me." She removed the chain and opened the door fully. Ramos smiled gently at the boys. "Your mom's very smart. Always good to stay close." They descended the stairs together. Maria held both children's hands tight. Outside, a black Mercedes waited at the curb. The back door opened. Thiago stepped out. He looked different than at the cafe. Still formal dark suit, white shirt, but his expression was softer, almost gentle. "Mrs. Martin, thank you for coming down." He glanced at Charlie and Kevin. "And thank you both for letting me borrow your mother for a moment." Kevin stared up at him with wide eyes. Charlie stayed close to Maria's side. "You can talk here," Thiago said. "I won't ask you to get in the car. I know that would be uncomfortable." Maria appreciated that. "What is this about?" "I wanted to check on you. Make sure you and your children were all right after what happened." "We're fine. Thank you," for Maria's voice caught. "For what you did. It was nothing. It wasn't nothing." Maria's eyes filled. "It was everything." Thiago nodded slowly. "May I ask you something?" "Yes. How long have you been working 2 jobs?" Maria blinked, surprised. 3 years, since my husband died. And the cafe. That was the first time you'd taken your children somewhere like that? "Yes." Maria felt defensive suddenly. "I saved for it. We can afford." "I know you can." Thiago held up a hand. "I'm not questioning that. I'm asking because I have a proposal." Maria waited. "I run a logistics company. Warehouses, shipping routes, inventory management. It's legitimate work." He paused. "I need someone to manage one of my distribution centers, oversee operations, handle scheduling and payroll." Maria's heart raced. "I don't have that kind of experience. You've been managing your life on impossible budgets for 3 years. You've kept your children fed, clothed, and in school while working 2 jobs. That takes more management skill than most MBAs have." "I don't understand. Why me?" "Because you deserve a chance." Thiago's voice was simple, honest. "And because I don't tolerate cruelty in my city. What those people did to you was wrong. This is my way of making it right." Maria shook her head. I can't accept charity. It's not charity. It's a job, with salary, benefits, and expectations. He handed her another card. The position pays $60,000 a year, health insurance included. There's also a scholarship fund for employees' children. Charlie and Kevin would qualify. Maria stared at the card. $60,000. That was more than both her current jobs combined. What's the catch? She asked quietly. No catch. You work hard. You show up. You do the job. Tiago met her eyes. I don't ask for loyalty. I don't ask for anything, except competence and honesty. I don't know anything about logistics. You'll learn. I have people who can train you. He paused. But I need an answer soon. The position starts next week. Maria looked at her children. Charlie was watching her carefully. Kevin had moved slightly closer to Tiago, curiosity overcoming caution. Can I think about it? She asked. Of course. Take tonight. Call the number on the card tomorrow. Tiago stepped back toward his car. Whatever you decide, Mrs. Martin, you should know something. What? Those people who humiliated you? They're gone. They left the city yesterday. They won't bother you again. Maria's eyes widened. How? Because I made sure of it. His voice was firm. No one hurts families in my city. No one. He got back in the Mercedes. Ramos nodded to Maria. Take care, ma'am. The car pulled away. Maria stood on the sidewalk, holding 2 business cards, her children beside her. Mom? Charlie said. Was that about a job? Yes, baby. A good one? Maria looked at the cards again. At the numbers. At the possibilities. I think so, she whispered. I think maybe it is. They walked back upstairs together. That night, after putting Charlie and Kevin to bed, Maria sat at her kitchen table. She looked at the jar where she'd saved coins for months. $27 that had bought them one meal. Then she looked at the business cards. One meal. Or a future. Maria picked up her phone and stared at the number. Her hands shook. This was crazy. Taking a job from someone she didn't know. Someone who clearly had power she didn't understand. But when had playing it safe ever gotten her anywhere? She'd played it safe with the construction company. They'd abandoned her. She'd played it safe with her landlord. He'd raised the rent anyway. Playing it safe meant working herself to death for scraps. Maybe it was time to take a chance. Maria dialed the number. It rang twice. Hello? Tiago's voice. Mr. Leal, this is Maria Martin. Mrs. Martin, I'm glad you called. I want the job, she said. I'll work hard. I'll learn everything. I promise I won't let you down. I know you won't. She could hear the smile in his voice. Come by the office Thursday morning, 9 a.m. Bring your children if you need to. Thank you. Maria's voice broke. Thank you so much. You're welcome. Good night, Mrs. Martin. The line went quiet. Maria set down her phone and let herself cry. But this time, they were different tears. Not from pain, from hope. Thursday morning, Maria stood outside a modern glass building, holding Charlie and Kevin's hands. The sign above the entrance read, Leal Logistics, Distribution Center 3. This is it, she whispered. Charlie looked up at her. You nervous? Terrified. You'll be good at it, Mom, he said with the confidence only children possess. Maria squeezed his hand and pushed through the glass doors. Inside, the reception area was clean and professional. A young woman at the desk looked up and smiled. You must be Mrs. Martin. Mr. Leal said to expect you. She stood. I'm Sophia. I'll show you around. These are my sons. Charlie and Kevin, right? Sophia smiled at them. We have a break room with games and books. They can hang out there while we do the tour. 20 minutes later, Maria stood in a large warehouse space. Rows of shelving stretched toward high ceilings. Forklifts moved between aisles. Workers in safety vests checked inventory on tablets. You'll oversee 43 employees, Sophia explained. Manage schedules, process shipments, handle payroll. It sounds complicated, but you'll have support. A man approached late 50s, kind eyes. Mrs. Martin, I'm Raymond. I run the day shift. I'll be training you for the first month. Thank you, Maria said. I appreciate your patience. I've never done anything like this. Neither had I when I started. Raymond grinned. Mr. Leal has a way of seeing potential people don't see in themselves. You'll do fine. Over the next 2 hours, Maria learned the computer systems, studied the shipping routes, met the team leads. Everyone was professional, respectful. No one looked at her clothes or made assumptions. She was just the new manager. At noon, Thiago appeared. He walked through the warehouse like he belonged there, greeting workers by name. When he reached Maria, he nodded. "How's the first day?" "Overwhelming," Maria admitted, "but good. Raymond's the best trainer we have. Listen to him." Tiago paused. "Your children settling in?" "Yes. Sophia's been wonderful." "Good." He started to leave, then stopped. "Mrs. Martin, one more thing. There's an apartment complex 2 blocks from here. Employee housing, 3 bedrooms. If you're interested, the rent is subsidized." Maria's throat tightened. "Mr. Leal, you've already done so much. It's part of the benefits package. Check it out. No pressure." He walked away before she could respond. That afternoon, Sophia drove Maria and her children to see the apartment. It was beautiful. Sunlight through clean windows. A full kitchen. Bedrooms big enough for actual beds, not just mattresses on floors. A small balcony overlooking a park. "It's normally $1,500 a month," Sophia said, "but employee rate is $600, includes utilities." Maria did the math in her head. With her new salary, she could afford it, easily. "Can I apply?" she asked. "Consider it done. You can move in this weekend." Kevin ran through the empty rooms, laughing. Charlie stood on the balcony, staring at the park with wonder. Maria watched her children and felt something crack open in her chest. Joy, pure, uncomplicated joy. 2 weeks later, Maria sat at her new kitchen table, reviewing shipment schedules on her laptop. Charlie and Kevin were asleep in their own rooms. Real beds, new sheets, space to breathe. Her phone buzzed. A text from Raymond. "Great job on the inventory reconciliation. You're a natural," Maria smiled. She'd found her rhythm. The work was challenging but manageable. The team respected her. She'd even implemented a new scheduling system that improved efficiency. For the first time in 3 years, Maria felt capable, useful, valued. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. She opened it to find Ramos standing there, holding a small envelope. "Evening, Mrs. Martin. Mr. Leal asked me to deliver this." Maria took the envelope. "What is it?" "Scholarship approval. For Charlie and Kevin. Private school. Full tuition covered through high school." Maria's hands shook. "I can't. This is too much." "It's not from him personally. It's from the Employee Benefit Fund. You qualified." Ramos smiled. "Your boys deserve good schools. Now they'll have them." He left before Maria could find words. She opened the envelope. Inside were acceptance letters to a prestigious private academy. Starting next semester. Maria sank into a chair and cried, but even through tears, she was smiling. That Saturday, Maria took Charlie and Kevin back to the cafe. The same cafe where everything had changed. She walked through the door with her head high, her children beside her. No fear, no shame. The hostess recognized her immediately. "Welcome back. Table for 3? "Yes, please." They were seated in a booth, not the same one, but it didn't matter. Maria ordered without checking prices. Burgers, milkshakes, dessert. When the food arrived, Kevin grinned. "This is even better than last time." "Everything's better now," Charlie said quietly. Maria looked at her children and realized something profound. She hadn't just survived the last 3 years. She'd endured. And now, finally, she was living. Across the cafe, a familiar figure sat in the corner booth. Tiago looked up from his espresso, met Maria's eyes, and nodded once. She nodded back. No words needed. He'd given her dignity when the world tried to strip it away. He'd given her opportunity when she had nothing. He'd given her family a future, not because he wanted something in return, but because cruelty offended him, and kindness was its own reward. Maria raised her milkshake slightly, a silent toast. Tiago raised his espresso cup in response. Then he stood, paid his bill, and left. Maria watched him go, knowing she'd probably never fully understand who he was or why he'd helped. But she understood this. Some people used power to hurt, and some used it to heal. Charlie reached for a fry. Kevin laughed at something on the menu. Maria sat with her children in the warm light of the cafe and let herself feel something she'd thought was lost forever. Peace. The city moved on outside. Traffic flowed. People rushed past. Life continued. But in this moment, at this table, Maria Martin had everything she needed. Her children were safe. Her future was secure. And the woman who'd once been humiliated in this very space now sat here as someone who mattered. Not because of wealth, because of worth. And no one could take that away. Maria's office overlooked the warehouse floor now. 3 months into the job, she'd earned the space. Her team's productivity was up 18%. shipping errors down to almost zero. She'd even negotiated better rates with 2 major carriers. Raymond knocked on her doorframe. "Got a minute?" "Always." He sat down, looking pleased. "Corporate's impressed. They want you to present your scheduling system at the quarterly meeting." Maria's eyes widened. "Me? Present to executives?" "You developed it. You should present it." Raymond grinned. "Besides, Mr. Leal specifically requested you." Her pulse quickened. She rarely saw Thiago anymore. He'd kept his distance after that first week, letting her build her career without interference. "When?" "Next Friday, downtown office." After Raymond left, Maria stared at her computer screen. She'd come so far from that night in the cafe, from the woman who'd apologized for existing, from the mother who'd saved coins in a jar. Now she was managing 43 employees and presenting to corporate executives. The transformation felt impossible, but it was real. Friday arrived. Maria stood in a conference room on the 20th floor, facing 12 executives. Thiago sat at the head of the table, expression neutral. "Mrs. Martin," he said, "please begin." Maria opened her presentation. Her hands didn't shake. She explained her system, how she'd analyzed workflow patterns, identified bottlenecks, restructured shifts. She showed data, graphs, projected savings. The executives asked questions. She answered confidently. When she finished, the room was silent. Then the CFO spoke. "This is excellent work. We should implement this across all facilities." Heads nodded around the table. Thiago leaned back in his chair. "Mrs. Martin, you've exceeded expectations. Well done." "Thank you, sir." As the meeting dispersed, Thiago gestured for her to stay. When the room emptied, he stood and walked to the window. "How are Charlie and Kevin?" he asked. "Thriving. Their teachers say they're both honor students." "Good." He turned to face her. "And you? Are you happy?" Maria considered the question. "Yes. For the first time in years, yes. That's all I wanted to hear." He paused. "You know, Mrs. Martin, I didn't give you this opportunity. I simply removed obstacles. Everything you've accomplished is your own work. You gave me a chance. I gave you access. You did the rest." His voice was firm. "Don't diminish your achievements by attributing them to me." Maria felt tears threatening. "Why did you help us? Really?" Thiago was quiet for a moment. "Because I grew up watching people like the Waters destroy people like you. And I decided long ago that when I had power, I'd use it differently. Not everyone with power thinks that way." "No, they don't." He walked toward the door, then paused. "The city forgets most people quickly, Mrs. Martin, but it remembers the ones who matter. You matter now. Not because I helped you. Because you proved you belong." He left. Maria stood alone in the conference room, looking out at the city skyline. Somewhere down there, in those streets, was her old apartment. The laundromat where she'd folded other people's clothes. The night cleaning jobs that had destroyed her back. That life felt like a lifetime ago, but she'd never forget it. Never forget what it felt like to be invisible. To be dismissed. To be humiliated for being poor. Those memories would keep her grounded, keep her kind. That evening, Maria picked up Charlie and Kevin from school. They climbed into the used car she'd been able to afford, not new, but reliable. "How was your day?" she asked. "Good," Charlie said. "I got an A on my history project." "I made the soccer team," Kevin announced. Maria's heart swelled. "That's wonderful, both of you." As they drove home, Kevin asked, "Mom, do you ever think about that night? At the cafe?" Maria glanced at him in the rearview mirror. "Sometimes. Why?" "Because everything changed after that." "Yes," Maria said softly. "It did. The man who helped us," Charlie said. "Mr. Leal. Is he a good person?" Maria thought carefully. "I think he's a complicated person who does good things. That's different than a good person. Sometimes people are both good and complicated. What matters is what they choose to do with their power." Charlie nodded, satisfied. They drove through streets Maria had once walked because she couldn't afford bus fare. Past the cafe where her life had changed. Past the old apartment building where they'd struggled. All of it still there, but different now, because she was different. At home, Maria made dinner a real dinner, with fresh vegetables and protein. Not stretched meals or day-old bread. After the boys went to bed, she sat on her small balcony. The city stretched out before her, lights flickering like stars fallen to earth. Somewhere in that city, Thiago Leal was probably working, managing his empire, protecting people she'd never know about. And somewhere, maybe, the waters were starting over. Learning, perhaps, that cruelty had consequences, Maria didn't forgive them. But she didn't hate them either. They'd taught her something valuable. Dignity couldn't be stolen, only surrendered, and she'd never surrender hers again. A text lit up her phone. From Raymond. "Congratulations on the presentation. You've earned your place here." Maria smiled and typed back, "Thank you, for everything." She set down her phone and looked at the stars. The world was still hard, still unfair, still full of people like the waters who measured worth in dollars. But it was also full of people like Tiago, like Raymond, like Sophia, people who saw value beyond price tags, people who used their power to lift instead of crush. Maria had been saved by one man's intervention, but she'd been restored by her own strength, and that made all the difference. The city hummed below. Maria closed her eyes and breathed deeply. Tomorrow she'd wake up and manage her warehouse, help her employees, raise her children, live a life that mattered, not because someone rescued her, but because she'd rescued herself. With a little help from someone who understood that power without compassion was just cruelty by another name. And in this city, on this night, that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Thanks for sticking with this story until the very end. You're the reason these stories feel alive. If you're ready for another powerful journey, just tap the next video on your screen. And before you go, leave a quick comment and rate this story from 1 to 10. I'm excited to read your thoughts and connect with you in the comments.
А все равно, сути дела не меняет, как бы зарплата плюс-минус везде там, больше, чуть меньше. Как бы, и, наверное, это все, вот эта общая ситуация, наверное, у многих привела, во-первых, сфера развлечений, да, всякие там кредиты и так далее, настолько загоняют каждого в задницу человека. И об этом на самом деле никто так-то не говорит. Какое количество сейчас, допустим, даже в те же сложные времена такие, когда вот сейчас идет там специальная военная операция, да, где люди вообще умирают, в принципе, за какую-то сумму денег. То есть какая мотивация, то есть у мужика идти типа на войну, воевать и заработать денег? Потому что он вот в обычной жизни не понимает, типа, как реализовать себя. Он понимает, что он может пойти работать на какую-то работу, где зарплаты его все равно не будет хватать. Как бы тут тоже двойственная сторона. Хорошо, когда она есть, плохо, когда ее нету. Да, вот это маленькая даже зарплаты. Но морально-то ты все равно подавлен. Ты понимаешь, да, я там пойду туда, но как бы смысла мне этого не принесет большого. Да, у меня там станет, если я вообще не работаю и буду работать за 50 тысяч, хорошо, что они у меня есть, я смогу там покушать себе купить, но это же дизмораль. Когда ты заходишь в интернет и видишь, как люди там в Дубае летают, покупают себе огромное количество автомобилей какие-то, много всего такого, что ты за эту зарплату себе никогда в жизни позволить не сможешь. И как человеку оставаться морально типа сильным? Что ему нужно делать? Наверное, во-первых, это, наверное, все от семьи исходит, да? То есть, какая семья у тебя, как она построена. Если ты один живешь, это сложно, да, ты будешь сам себя, но у тебя, опять-таки, возможно, родители, если есть, которые друзья поддержат тебя в какой-то момент, хотя бы просто отвлекут тебя от этих мыслей. А если у тебя, к примеру, там, семья, жена, к примеру, да, есть дети, то тут, наверное, поддержка только от них исходит какая-то. Вот. Чтобы не упиваться в своих мыслях о том, что какая нынче сложная жизнь. И, наверное, других-то вариантов, в принципе-то, и нету. Какие вот еще варианты, в принципе, изменить, поменять свою жизнь настолько, чтобы она была, казалась тебе удачной, да, реализованным себя в жизни, в чем-то. в чем, вот как проявляется на самом деле у нас реализованность? Наверное, у 90% случаев это финансовое благополучие, финансовая независимость. Это, наверное, одно из таких ключевых моментов, когда человек, наверное, считает себя реализованным, да, в этой жизни. То есть, как добиться этого? То есть, с учетом того, что даже возьмем нашу страну, да, сколько миллионов людей здесь живет, как каждому добиться этого результата? Ну, понятно. И с каждым годом просто ситуация становится все хуже и хуже. Все дорожает, люди зарабатывают либо столько же. Ну, даже если они зарабатывают столько же, на самом деле этого все уже недостаточно. К чему это все приведет на самом деле? В оконцове, наверное, мир погрязнет в большую депрессию в какую-то. Какие-то войны, возможно, или еще что-то еще больше глобальных таких вещей, которые не приведут ни к чему хорошему на самом деле. Поддержка каждого человека именно для того, чтобы он держался, наверное, морально, заключается в том, что, ну, наверное, дом, в который ты приходишь, должен быть крепостью твоей, да, что это единственное должно быть место, где ты будешь чувствовать себя под защитой. Для этого было придумано, наверное, своя пещера изначально, потом свои какие-то чумы, палатки различные, да, потом все это превратилось, на данный момент это у нас дома, квартиры, в которые мы приходим и должны ощущать себя в безопасности, чтобы можно быть немного морально расслабленным с учетом того, что ты выходишь каждый день на работу, на улицу, и все равно давление вот это вот, оно все присутствует. Когда ты заходишь в магазин, видишь цены эти, да, и так далее, не можешь себе что-то там приобрести, позволить на ежедневной основе, это откладывает большой, наверное, отпечаток. Не, наверное, а точно. И поэтому, когда возвращаясь домой, ты чувствуешь, вот хотя бы есть типа уголок того места, куда ты можешь прийти. Уголок на самом деле человеку много тоже не надо. Можно хотеть большего, но на самом деле человеку одному много не надо. Да? Ему нужно спальное место, спокойное место, где можно подумать. Ну, это когда ты один, к примеру, да? Когда у тебя есть семья, к примеру, ты приходишь домой, опять-таки, тут хотя бы, да, поговорить о каких-то вещах. Просто об отрешенных вещах, наверное. И, возможно, при этих же условиях у тебя и появляется какая-то дополнительная мотивация для реализации себя. А когда у тебя нету ничего, вот это уже становится проблемой. И это у многих на самом деле. Что значит не иметь ничего? Тут, наверное, самое главное, дизмораль у человека еще возникает при том, что это уже, наверное, где-то в глубине души даже она возникает при даже хорошей финансовой подушке такой, которая у тебя есть, хороших финансовых деньгах, да, то есть, но нету вот внутреннего ощущения, к примеру, дружбы, семьи, любви и так далее. Это уже отдельно на самом деле разговор, потому что мы, вот, к примеру, можем взять, как сейчас вот Новстрой, если кто-то смотрит, насколько тяжело обладать такими финансами и не иметь, по сути, ничего. ни друзей, ничего не иметь. Так главное это получается для бедных главное деньги, для богатых главное какое-то внутреннее ощущение нужности, не из-за денег. Вот такое вот. И эта борьба какая-то такая и вот эти два слоя общества, богатые и бедные, они друг друга не понимают. На самом деле из-за этого, возможно. Потому что богатый человек, он уже не смотрит на деньги, он не считает эти деньги. Ему важно внутреннее вот это вот ощущение того, что он нужен без них даже. Это как Тони Старку сказали: а кто ты без костюма? На вот это я филантроп, тудым-сюдым, он сказал, да? Так и человеку, у которого много денег, ты задашь вопрос: а кто ты без денег? Ну, что ты представляешь себе без денег? Вот и это, наверное, возможно, таких людей богатых, как вот, например, там Мелстрой, задав ему этот вопрос: а кто ты без денег? Он на него ответить-то и не сможет. Обратная сторона людей бедных, да, вот если мы посмотрим, человеку